There is a very comforting assumption that I think we all make. Like at the very moment we wake up, grab our phones and just start scrolling.
Oh, absolutely. The morning scroll.
Right. And we assume that the digital space we're entering is basically a mirror.
Yeah.
We really think our feed is just, handing us back our own reflection. Like you tapped like on a baking video yesterday,
Mhm.
right? Or you followed a local news outlet, or you commented on your friend's vacation photo.
Hmm.
And so logically, we assume the platform is simply serving up this customized menu
Yeah.
of exactly what you asked for because it feels safe. And above all, it feels like, you are the one in control.
It is an incredibly pervasive illusion, and it's one we really cling to, I think, because the alternative is just deeply unsettling.
Yeah, nobody wants to think about the alternative.
Right. We desperately want to believe that the technology we literally carry around in our pockets all day is just this neutral servant, just passively organizing the content we've explicitly recorded.
But, and this is what we're getting into today, what if that mirror isn't a mirror at all?
Yeah.
What if you were actually looking into a one-way glass?
Mm.
And on the other side of that glass is a highly volatile, completely weaponized system that is, well, not only ignoring your choices, but actively trapping you.
It's a terrifying thought.
It really is. So today, we are taking a deep dive into an absolutely chilling analysis. It's by Dr. Melvin Sewell, and it was published recently in By B magazine.
Fantastic piece of writing.
Oh, it's incredible. And he calls this phenomenon the algorithmic snare.
Yeah.
And his work, it completely shatters the idea that we are the ones steering the ship here.
It really does. And what makes Sewell's analysis so vital right now is how it just dismantles the invisible architecture we interact with, thousands of times a day.
Thousands.
Yeah. He bridges the gap between these highly technical, systemic exploits, how these algorithms are actively failing us, and the deeply personal, real-world fallout of being caught inside those failures.
Right, because it's not just abstract tech stuff.
Exactly. It's not just about screen time or, getting distracted. It's about what happens when the very environment we rely on is fundamentally hijacked. He uses this framework that blends technical analysis with what he calls mythic infrastructure and cinematic indictment.
Which we will definitely get into because that part blew my mind. But our mission for you today, for the listener, is to explore exactly how the modern internet transformed from this user-directed experience into a deeply opaque black box environment.
It's a total black box. Yeah.
We're going to look at the actual mechanics of how these systems are exploited by bad actors. And most importantly, the chilling consequences of getting caught in this digital snare. Because the fallout, well, it goes far beyond just seeing an annoying post.
Oh, way beyond.
We are talking about state surveillance and the complete inversion of what it actually means to have intent.
Yeah, and to truly grasp the danger of this algorithmic snare, we have to start by really tearing down that very illusion you mentioned at the top of our deep dive.
The mirror.
Right, the mirror. We have to completely shatter the myth of the neutral feed.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I think most of us, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, we view our digital feeds like a personal, highly curated buffet.
A buffet, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Right. Like you walk in with your empty plate. You say, I'll take a little bit of stand-up comedy, some sports highlights, maybe a dash of updates from my family, and then you sit down to consume exactly what you selected.
Exactly.
But Sewell's premise just throws that entire concept out the window. That whole idea of the feed being a direct reflection of your intentional engagements,
Yeah.
he calls it entirely obsolete.
Completely obsolete. The reality of the architecture you are dealing with right now is something entirely different. And what's fascinating here is that the modern algorithmic feed is actually a volatile mix.
Volatile is a scary word for a social media feed.
It is, but it's accurate. It is not driven by your personal curation. It's not about your thoughtful selections at all. It is driven exclusively by automated recommendation engines and what Sewell calls hyper-efficient data monetization loops.
Hyper-efficient data monetization loops.
Wow. That really strips the romance away from the whole social media experience, doesn't it?
It really does.
It basically means the platform fundamentally does not care if you specifically ask for that sports highlight or that baking video, like at all.
Yep.
It only cares about what keeps your eyes glued to the glass for the absolute next microsecond.
Precisely. You are operating inside a black box environment. And that term, black box, is so crucial for understanding this snare.
Because we can't see inside it.
Right. But it's worse than that. It means that even the engineers who built the system, the literal people writing the code, they often cannot fully predict or explain why the algorithm pushes a specific piece of content at a specific user at a specific moment.
Wait, really? The engineers themselves don't even know? No, because the system has just been given a single overriding prime directive. Optimize for monetization. Maximize attention at all costs.
Just keep people looking.
Exactly. It will use whatever behavioral data it has to achieve that goal, entirely regardless of your stated preferences. You are not the curator of the buffet.
We're the product.
You are the product moving along the conveyor belt.
Wow. And if the platform's only goal is engagement, like if the machine literally only cares about velocity and keeping your eyes on the screen, what happens when someone artificially fakes that engagement?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Because if the system is just this blind, opaque box hunting for metrics, it stands to reason it could be tricked, right?
This is exactly where the platform decay becomes actively dangerous. We aren't just talking about a system that awkwardly shows you an ad for, like, a blender you already bought.
Right, which happens all the time.
Yeah, but we are talking about the deliberate exploitation of platform mechanics by hostile actors.
Now, hold on. I want to push back on this a little bit because I know a lot of people listening are probably thinking the exact same thing I am.
Sure.
These massive tech platforms have thousands of the smartest engineers in the world. They have billions of dollars invested in AI moderation, safety protocols, all of that.
Yes, they do.
So are you telling me a handful of automated bot accounts can just like outsmart all of that by clicking like really fast? That seems way too easy. How does a completely innocent user, someone who genuinely only follows puppy videos and, I don't know, gardening tips, suddenly get hit with graphic, illicit, or even criminal material on a pristine feed?
It's a great question. Because to the user, it absolutely feels like a targeted predatory trap.
Right, it feels personal.
When something horrific suddenly autoplays on a feed that previously only showed gardening content, your immediate human reaction is, why did it single me out? Like, what did I click on to deserve this?
Exactly. You feel like you messed up.
But from an architectural perspective, this isn't a glitch in the code. And it isn't necessarily a targeted attack on you specifically. It represents a catastrophic failure of automated moderation, working exactly as it was designed to.
Wait. Working as designed, how does that make any sense?
Because of what the illicit networks are actually doing, they weaponize metadata.
Okay.
When a hostile actor wants to inject corrupted, illegal, or highly graphic content into the mainstream, they don't try to hack the platform's servers.
They don't need to.
Exactly. They deploy massive bot swarms.
Yeah.
These are armies of automated fake accounts working in absolute synchronized coordination. They don't just like a post. They share it, they bookmark it, they replay the first 3 seconds over and over to simulate massive audience retention.
Oh, wow.
They artificially inflate the engagement metrics around that specific piece of illicit data.
Okay, I think I need an analogy here to wrap my head around this.
Go for it.
It's like the algorithm is a bouncer at a highly exclusive nightclub. And the bouncer's only rule is only let famous people inside.
That's exactly it.
So the bot swarm is basically a group of people who hire 100 fake paparazzi to surround a complete nobody. They flash cameras, they scream, they cause a massive scene outside the club.
Right.
And the bouncer, the algorithm, doesn't actually know who the person is. He just sees the flashes, he sees the velocity of the crowd. He assumes this person must be incredibly famous, so he just opens the velvet rope and pushes them right onto the dance floor.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. The algorithm, sitting blind inside its black box, doesn't have a moral compass.
It has no idea what it's looking at.
None. It cannot watch the video and understand that it contains horrific or illegal acts. It just sees the metadata. It sees the artificial velocity created by the fake paparazzi.
It flashes.
Right. And it concludes, oh, this piece of content is generating an unprecedented amount of engagement. Therefore, it is highly effective for our monetization loops. Therefore, I must push it to as many users as possible immediately.
And that is what Sewell calls the algorithmic cascade.
Yes. The cascade forcibly injects this corrupted, hostile content onto the screens of completely innocent users. The multi-billion-dollar automated moderation you mentioned, it fails completely because it is blinded by the sheer speed and volume of the artificial engagement.
But, tech companies ultimately just want ad revenue. They don't really care what you look at as long as you keep looking.
True.
The true danger, the real snare here, starts when entities who do care what you look at get access to this exact same data pipeline.
This is where we pivot from a technical critique of Silicon Valley into geopolitical reality.
Here's where it gets really
Yeah.
interesting. Because if Western tech firms are just looking at corporate optimization, this data still doesn't exist in a vacuum. Who else is watching?
Well, while tech firms are blinded by corporate optimization, authoritarian jurisdictions and state cyber task forces are looking at the exact same digital landscape with a completely different objective.
Right, they aren't trying to sell you sneakers.
No, definitely not. These state actors utilize massive public scraping tools and network tracking to continuously monitor the internet. And what they are hunting for are point-of-engagement metrics.
Wait, point of engagement metrics. Let's make sure that's crystal clear for the listener.
Sure.
That means these state monitors are tracking the exact moment your thumb stops swiping. Like, the fraction of a second of video plays on your screen completely, regardless of whether you ask to see it or not.
Yes. Think about the last time you were, say, scrolling on the train on your way home. Imagine an autoplay video suddenly pops up, forced into your feed by one of these cascades we just talked about.
Yeah.
It's graphic, or it's politically volatile, or it's straight up illegal. You probably freeze for a half second in pure shock, and then you frantically swipe past it because you didn't want to see it.
No, of course not. You recoiled from it. You were trying to get it off your screen.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, to an outside state monitor scraping the network, they don't see your physical recoil. All they see is that your specific device rendered that data. The fact that your screen stopped on it is recorded as a point of engagement. And here is the most chilling revelation from the report. These state entities treat a user's mere proximity and passive exposure to this material as actionable evidence of intent.
I really want to slow down and let that sink in for a second. Passive exposure as actionable evidence of intent.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. It completely inverts our entire concept of justice.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't seek the content out. A machine, weaponized by bad actors using a bot swarm, forced it onto your screen.
Exactly.
But the state monitor watching the data pipeline says, well, it rendered on your screen, therefore you intended to view it. You are guilty by proximity.
It creates a perfectly closed loop of systemic erosion. The tech companies build a flawed, vulnerable system optimized solely for money. Illicit networks exploit those vulnerabilities to inject chaos in graphic material. And then, state actors use the resulting chaos to monitor, penalize, or intimidate individuals. The failure of corporate content moderation literally becomes the primary tool for state-sponsored intimidation.
The scale of that.
Yeah,
It's just suffocating.
it is.
The sheer density of this technological decay, the idea that you could be framed by a mathematical equation you don't even control.
Yeah.
It's so heavy and abstract that I think it's actually hard for the human brain to process on a Tuesday afternoon.
It's a lot to take in, yeah.
Which brings me to the strangest part of this deep dive.
The lore.
Okay, wait. So I was following you on the bot swarms. I was following you on this state surveillance and the one-way glass.
Yeah.
But then I hit this latter part of Dr. Sewell's analysis, and suddenly he is talking about something called Psycho Venga, emerging from a rift, and SH1 resonance,
Yeah.
and corrupted node vectors.
Right, right.
I genuinely thought I had picked up a sci-fi novel or a video game manual by mistake.
Yeah.
Like, why build a whole cinematic universe just to talk about algorithms?
It's a very deliberate structural choice, and honestly, a vital part of why this analysis is so effective.
Really? How so?
Think about it. If you just read a 50-page white paper about metadata exploits and algorithmic engagement cascades, your eyes glaze over.
Yeah, fair enough.
Technical fatigue sets in. You become numb to the danger because it sounds like a software patch problem, not a human threat.
So he uses what he calls an SMI lore translation preset. He translates this very real, terrifying digital dynamic into a profound sci-fi dystopia.
Exactly.
He frames the algorithmic cascade we just talked about as a corrupted node vector.
The terminology is striking because it forces you to visualize the threat in a new way.
It really does. He describes a governing matrix that forces highly toxic reality packets into a player's experiential field.
Yes.
And then the system uses the player's mandatory cognitive processing of that data. The simple, unavoidable fact that their eyes had to look at the screen as justification for alignment penalties or immediate extraction.
Which is exactly.
It's the exact same concept of passive exposure as intent that we just discussed, but translated into the language of a survival game. You even see it baked into the very footer of the Bye 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 magazine piece, where it drops this ominous lore about Psycho Venga. It just shows how deeply this mythic world is constructed.
But it's crucial to ground this back in the practical reality of what the author is trying to achieve. If you look at the sovereign diagnostic disclaimer provided alongside the text, it explicitly clarifies the purpose of this lore.
So it's not just a gimmick.
No, Sewell emphasizes that this isn't just creative writing for the sake of entertainment, it is a diagnostic tool.
He categorizes all of this work, including all these references to Echo Rift films and the Cosmic University, as a sovereign broadcast.
Exactly. The disclaimer states that these materials are authored as mythic infrastructure and cinematic indictment.
I love that phrase, cinematic indictment.
It's brilliant. They are designed to expose ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion. By framing the technical failures of algorithms and the creeping horror of state surveillance through the lens of a sci-fi narrative, through a corrupted node vector, it gives us permission to step back.
It removes us from the everyday tech jargon.
Right. It allows us to view our own reality as an environment we are currently trapped inside, which forces critical thinking without getting bogged down by endless lines of code and technical terms.
It's a way of making the invisible threat visible. Like if I tell you a bot swarm manipulated metadata to increase a video's velocity, you nod your head and go back to scrolling.
Yeah, it doesn't hit home.
But if I tell you a governing matrix just forced a toxic reality packet into your field of vision specifically to justify extracting you from the game, you instantly understand the stakes. You actually feel the jaws of the snare closing around you.
And that is the true value of the sovereign diagnostic. It provides a framework for understanding. As the disclaimer notes, these interpretations and collapse protocols are not affiliated with any government or activist group.
We should definitely be clear about that.
What?
We aren't taking any sides here either, just reporting what's in the text.
Exactly. They are purely diagnostic tools meant to help the individual recognize the hostile environment they're navigating. Because ultimately, you cannot defend yourself against a trap you refuse to see.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We started this deep dive by talking about the comforting illusion of the mirror. The idea that your feed is safe, that you are the curator of your own digital buffet. But the reality of the algorithmic snare thoroughly dismantles that. You are navigating a digital space that is not neutral. It is a highly volatile black box optimized only for velocity and monetization.
And because of that specific architecture, it is highly vulnerable to systemic failures. Bot swarms can and actively will trick the bouncer. They will force illicit, corrupted content past the velvet rope and onto your pristine screen.
And the final, most devastating layer of the snare is that this catastrophic failure is being watched. Your passive exposure to that injected content is actively being weaponized by outside observers.
Yeah.
Authoritarian entities and state cyber task forces are treating the mere fact that a video rendered on your device as actionable evidence of your intent. The failure of the platform literally becomes the ultimate tool of the state.
Understanding the mechanics of the snare is the necessary first step. Whether you approach it through the systemic exploit analysis of metadata or the mythic infrastructure of a corrupted node vector, you have to recognize the systemic erosion happening on our platforms every single time we log on.
It really forces you to reconsider every single interaction you have with your device. Like the next time you open an app and a video starts playing, before you even realize what it is, I want you to think about who else might be logging that exact second of your attention.
Sobering thought.
It is. And it leaves us with an incredibly heavy question to ponder as we go about our day. If algorithms are now completely capable of bypassing our choices and forcing illicit content onto our screens,
Right.
and if outside entities are increasingly viewing our completely passive exposure to that content as evidence of our intent, how will you as an individual eventually prove your own innocence against a machine's recommendation? In a future where the simple act of looking is treated as a crime, how do you prove that you were forced to open your eyes?